What is up, my cutouts cardboard ninja here, coming at you with planned balance changes and improvements to existing mechanics in Crossout. Presently, it's November 27th, and for whatever reason, Gaijin decides to drop a massive test server bomb on the game. Well, let's keep going. So they're doing tonnage recalculation mechanics. Blah 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 blah. Okay, yeah, you're like, what? What is all this crap? So if you ain't got the time to read all of this and figure out what all this means, because there is a lot in here, and ultimately they are nerfing the shit out of legs. That's basically what this comes down to. Hovers also, and in doing so, for whatever reason, they have forgotten uh, Omni hovers. They've forgotten that entirely, but I'll explain. So, right now, if you use legs, currently in Crossout, many people hybridize their build. So, for example, let's assume that you're using Griddia and um, the wheels that increase your damage with energy weapons. For some reason, I'm like forgetting them. Long story short, they're front-mounted wheels. All right, let's assume you're using those. Well, right now, you get the tonnage benefits from your wheels that you have attached to your leg build, in addition to the perk. Well, they're changing that. So all movement parts that are not hovers fall into one of two categories, low and high. Low is everything but legs, high is legs. Pretty straightforward. So if you mix high and low, if at any point in time your low parts don't touch the ground, you get no benefits from them, period. Full stop. This is a nerf to legs, obviously. So in this instance, you see the Sabbath wheels and the ML200 legs. And this is to prevent you from gaining the Sabbath's bonus. When you take damage, it increases the top speed of your cabin, as well as the power of your cabin. You no longer get those if you're using legs, hence the reason why they're glowing orange. The only time that you get those, including the tonnage benefits to that, is if they're touching the ground. So just a huge nerf to legs that they're trying to test out. Also, there's dumb calculation mechanics that calculates once every like 4 seconds or some crap like that. If you're in the air, it doesn't do recalculation for whatever reason. I'm sure someone's gonna find a way to abuse the crap out of that. Yeah. Oh my goodness, it's terrible. It's just terrible. Long story short, when you lose your high movement parts, the low ones and all the parameter bonuses start to work permanently. But they mean all. When they say you lose all your high movement parts, so if you lose all four like spider legs, then your low perks kick in. It's just dumb. Long story short, they're just nerfing this because also people have been using tank tracks. You guys know what I'm talking about, to defend their vehicles, and they want to fix that. So because of the fact that you don't get the bonus tonnage from equipped wheels with your legs, now it is not possible to use wheels to increase tonnage of your vehicle. This doesn't sound like it's that big of a problem, but it is. There are many vehicles out there who use legs and they utilize the tonnage benefits from wheels in order to offset the amount of tonnage that they have, because sometimes it's just not enough. Instead of adding another ML200, which would make you overweight, instead you throw on a big ram or something like that. People have done it, you've seen it, etc. That's getting nerfed. I don't think it's a good idea, but whatever. In addition to this, there's new anti-wedge mechanics. In effect, if you hit someone and they have less wheels touching the ground, they weigh less. So wedges are coming back effectively. You remember how the reason why you even use a wedge is to get their wheels off the ground? This was back in the day. To get their wheels off the ground so that you could push them around like they're in nothing. Yeah, for some reason they're going back to that. For example, if a car has 10 wheels, it hits another car and 4 wheels go off the ground, the car will only apply 40% of the additional mass relative to what it would have applied to its current game server. Hovers and movement parts don't get that, of course, but you get the idea. Long story short, it's easier to move people now. I don't know why they're doing that. Long story short, they think that the calculation of the applied mass mechanics will become more fair. I don't know. That doesn't feel more fair. It just means that they're bringing back wedges. But then again, they've already have that engine drain if you're in a light or medium cabin and you deign to touch any build, and your car effectively turns off. So that's still in the game. Balance changes. This is huge. Huge. PU1 charge, they're reducing the mass from 576 to 445. Long story short, too many people using Ampere, not enough people using PU1 charge. Good change. Goblin and Gremlin, reducing damage. Goblin by 5%, Gremlin by 10%. Rate of fire of the Goblins being cut by 19%. That means it's going to match that of the Gremlin. And now, instead of 40% damage pass-through, it's 30% damage pass-through. For those of us who don't know, that is a durability hit. They're saying, in reality, shotguns they do too much damage for their energy, and they survive too long. So they're removing the damage and the survivability of the Goblin and the Gremlin. They're not removing it, they're just nerfing it. Cap can, you get stuck to the ground for 6 seconds instead of 7 seconds, and they basically say, oh, it turns out that you become defenseless. What? It's crazy. Yeah, it's still not going to matter. 6 seconds is still enough time. They're nerfing the expanded ammo pack, and I found out why. Basically, they're increasing the mass from 288 to 408. And the reason is because you assholes who are using ammo pack armor, you know who you are. You know who you are. So for those of us who don't know, there are people who roll hovers, and they put expanded ammo packs on the front of their hovers, even if they aren't using weapons that require ammunition, because they just have a lot of durability. And with the way the Scorpions work, Scorpions dump their damage based on damage not dealt. So, because of the hit points of the expanded ammo pack, those will actually absorb a significant sum of damage from a Scorpion, or even any other penetrative weapon. But you're going to think, but Cardboard Ninja, they explode. Doesn't matter if the ammo pack explodes. Straight up doesn't matter. They're extended out on... It's just another version of spaced armor. It's back. They just spaced their armor with something with a lot of durability. So it's getting nerfed. Miller, nerf, they're increasing the mass, and then in addition to that, they're adding an ammunition parameter. They didn't say anything here about removing the heating parameter, so you probably need... This is a very long time ago. The Reaper, which is the legendary version of the Miller, existed, and it had a very stupid point in its history where it required both RN seals and ammunition. I believe that is what's happening to the Miller right now. It seems they're just rocking. You will need an RN seal or 2 plus ammunition to make the Miller function. They're saying this because it's just too good of a gun, so they're nerfing it. Basically, they're trying to bring up other stuff. Long story short, gun too good, nerf. So you have to bring ammunition now with the Miller. Not bad though. I mean, the Miller's still a good gun. But the fact that it still overheats at the same time is stupid. The Guridia, everyone knows these legs are great, and they're saying, hey, this is the strongest movement part in the game, is what the devs believe. Yeah, they've yet to run into hovers, apparently, for some reason. But yeah, so they're reducing the tonnage from 1,600 to 1,400, and by the way, this is in addition to the change above with the wheel change. So you don't get the tonnage added to your build of wheels. Now this is important because, again, some Guridia builds use wheels in some way, shape, or form to offset the tonnage given by the build itself. So basically, Guridia nerf. Who could have foreseen? Still fast, still all the things they are before. They're not getting less durable. It just means that each of them are giving 200 less, which means the standard build is getting 600 less tonnage, and the extreme builds are getting 800 less tonnage. So you got to find a way to get 800 more tonnage. And if you didn't build enough Guridia legs before the pass went away, I guess you're fucked. Continuing forward, not even joking. Like, if you didn't build more Guridia legs in the battle pass than you needed, you are now fucked. Your builds are just fucked, unless you want to supplant these with some other leg, which will only make you move slower. Moving forward, Blight. The perk damage bonus is reduced from 40 to 35%, and the distance required to charge the perk is increased from 300 meters to 500 meters. Straight up Blight nerf. They're saying that right now the Blight provides an excessive bonus to vehicles that use fire weapons, and the change would make the ratio of the bonus itself to the frequency of its use more fair. I don't know how they come to that. I don't know what more fair means, right? So like more fair is a subjective term. Honestly, I don't really have a problem with the Blight. Every fire dog uses the Blight. They're not going to stop using the Blight. I mean, in reality, in most CW matches, you only activate the Blight perk once, and if you're super lucky twice, now it just means you're only going to activate it once, the initial onset when you breach the first hover and send them straight to the X zone, because it doesn't change anything. 5% less damage is not that much. But yeah, Blight nerf. The Astreus, for those of us who don't know, it's the mass accelerator that damages itself. The reload time has increased from 4 to 5 seconds, so it now takes longer for you to fire between shots by 20%. Damage reduced by 10%. That combined with a 20% reload nerf is pretty DPS nerfing, and the perk damage bonus reduced from 60% to 50%. So right now for the Astreus, you have to overcharge the weapon to its absolute maximum, and then it does 60% bonus damage, etc. Now it's going to be reduced by 10%. So damage reduced by 10%, and then perk damage reduced by 10%, and reload increased by 20%. Huge nerf to the Astreus, and this is nerfing it in a wide range of power scores from 7,000 to 14,000. Actually, believe it or not, it nerfs it in every power score because this is just a straight up nerf. Yeah, and it was a much better assembler, but now it is a little bit worse. The damage of the Astreus was identical to the blockchain. I think it was 114, so 10% off that's like 11. So now it's doing 104. And this is all off the top of my head, so don't quote me, but I believe it's doing 104 base, which means that fully charged it'll do 159, something like that, maybe 160. Yeah, nerf to the Astreus. GL55. Remember that previous patch that came in and buffed the shit out of the GL55? They were like, oh man, GL55 bad. This is the grenade launcher, single shot. They're like, so bad, so bad. What they did is they're undoing most of that. They're like, whoops, whoopsie. We went way too far. Gun too good. And that's what they're saying down here in the italicized text. They're saying gun too good, whoopsie, we bad at job. However, stats of the GL55 Impulse are still higher than they were before they added the buff. So the base GL55 is still better than it used to be, but worse than it just was after it got supercharged. But then again, I didn't really see that many GL55, so whatever. Cerberus cabin, this is the cabin that has the melee on the front. They're adding 30% explosive damage resistance. It says to the front of the cabin. I don't know if that covers the whole cabin, but I don't know. It says resistance to ram damage also applies to the front of the cabin. Is that a nerf? Right now, the resistance to ram damage is universal across the entirety of the cabin. Are they limiting it only to the front? We're gonna have to look into that, because that could be just a straight up a nerf. Comment, thanks to the change, the built-in melee weapon becomes similar to other melee weapons, and the cabin is not as vulnerable as before. Seriously, you're saying that, but like, is this zone dependent? The language here indicates that's zone dependent. If it's zone dependent, this is a nerf. Nerf buff. So it's 6 1/2 down to the other. If it is not, it just means the cabin takes 30% less explosive, just like it does right now take, I think, 50% less melee or collision than the Cerberus. That's a buff, but hard to tell. Werewolf. Anybody who remembers the Werewolf knows it's one of the worst cabins in the game. You drop a little fuse drone after you die, which immediately is destroyed, and everyone laughs because it doesn't do anything. They are changing the perk. Now, after the cabin is destroyed, a drone with a Fafnir shotgun remains for an unlimited amount of time. That's right, when you die, you become a drone with a shotgun. It's a little Fafnir. The comment, this change is aimed primarily at increasing interest in using the cabin. A controlled drone with unlimited lifetime will make the game more interesting, even after the main vehicle is destroyed. I mean, it's better than a fuse drone. I'm not gonna lie, like, most of the time the fuse drone spawns in over the corpse, by the way, because again, back in the day when the werewolf was originally made, when you exploded, your entire build disappeared off the battlefield. That's not the case anymore. You get stuck in your own fucking build now. So this will spawn a drone normally that can't get out of the build that was just destroyed before it just self-destructs inside of it. Now you're going to have a Fafnir shotgun. Maybe you'll be able to shoot your way out of your own corpse. Who knows? We'll see. Not a very good buff, but a buff nonetheless. Ghost. The cabin's perk now starts resetting after taking damage, which is not ramming damage, not after exiting invisibility. The comment, the cabin's perk was too dependent on invisibility modules. This edit gives the player more control over the implementation of bonus damage. The ghost is weird. I don't know what this is saying to me. It's still entirely reliant on invisibility modules, because they failed to note that you have to have an invisibility module to activate the perk in the first effing place, but fine. The cool thing is the duration of the perk is effectively unlimited. As long as you don't get hit, you can have the Ghost's bonus damage on, which gives it even more synergy with the Still Wind, which is dog crap now, but more synergy with the Still Wind. Yeah, you just get your damage bonus until someone shoots you back. That's like 28% more damage until someone attacks you, which will begin the cooldown of, I think, 6 seconds. So that's actually a pretty big buff to the Ghost. Caucus, another nerf, because they hate this gun. My suggestion to the devs is to just remove the gun. Just remove it. You clearly hate it. You clearly don't like it. You designed it years ago, and you just hate it. So just remove it. Just remove it. Long story short, vertical aiming angles have been halved from plus 40 to minus 20 to plus 20 minus 10, meaning you don't aim up and down very much. Comment, it's too effective when mounted on armored aircraft. In other words, when you're flying around and shooting at people, you're able to fly around and shoot at people. What a shock. They're like, no, you can't do that. In ground battles, it rarely uses such vertical aiming angles. Untrue. But whatever. Long story short, they just need to remove this gun. They need to remove this gun, and they need to remove the ATGM, not the ATGM flute, I'm sorry. They need to remove the worst gun in the game, the, dang it, why can I not remember the name of the gun that everyone hates? The clarinet toe. Yeah, that just needs to go. They just need to go because they don't know what to do with them. Like, honestly, like, the Caucus is not that good. Just because it's effective in the air game mode, it doesn't mean that it needs to go. However, please note, don't worry, the air game mode, everyone's getting nerfed. Just that's a spoiler alert. The Pyre, optimal range reduced from 300 to 200 meters. The distance from which damage begins to decrease. Here's the thing, the Pyre is a missile. It's a missile. Does the Pyre do less damage over distance? Does the Pyre and the Hurricane do less damage over distance? I didn't think it did. I'll have to double check, but I guess apparently missiles do less damage when you're over 300 meters away. Now it's over 200 meters away. Hurricane, nerf to the Hurricane. They're saying that these changes to reduce the effectiveness of these rocket launchers in air battles that take place at a greater distance between ground vehicles. Honestly, I'll take any Hurricane nerf we can get. I hate that gun. But it's not going to be enough. I don't know. Like, again, like, it doesn't matter. I'm doing the math in my head. Like, Hurricanes fire over 300 meters all the time, and they still crack builds in half at over 300 meters. So I don't know what this is saying. 200 meters, 300 meters, the damage is already scaled down, if it does scale down. But whatever. Nerf to the Pyre, nerf to the Hurricane. You won't notice it in regular gameplay. You may notice it in flying gameplay. Buff to the BC-17 Tsunami, and buff to the ZS-47 Mammoth. Reload time from both are cut down to 6 seconds. They're saying the Tsunami and the Mammoth have excessively long reload time. No shit. Taking into account the characteristics and the types of weapons, doesn't fit in the current pace of battles. No shit. These weapons just take too long to shoot. They always have. However, these buffs really... they really buff the cannon bots. Less of a buff to the players. Athena nerf. The number of shells in the burst increased from 7 to 10. Normally that would mean that would increase your damage by 30%, but damage and heating from each hit in the burst reduced by 30%. See what happened there? So the damage should come out the same. It just takes 10 hits to do it, right? Now the spread increases more as the burst is fired, but it stops increasing when the weapon is rotating. So they say the effectiveness of the revolver is too damn high. This edit preserves the possible total damage, but stretches into a larger number of projectiles and complicates its implementation, including the perk that requires hitting all of the projectiles in the queue. So it's true, you do need to hit all 10 projectiles now instead of 7 in order to make the perk explode and do damage throughout someone's build. It is an Athena nerf. It is a third. It's not really a. I can't say it's a 30% nerf. But it's a nerf. You have to expose yourself a little bit longer to combat, and also it's no longer going to be pinpoint, super mega precise accurate, as it is a 1 pin wide bullet. So they're decreasing the accuracy. We'll see how that plays out. Yes, I'm certainly sure that the price of the Athena is currently coming down in the marketplace. So if you need to repurchase your Athenas, now is the time. Spark 3, or basically the Spark, they're reducing the damage frequency by 25%, meaning that the rate of fire is cut by 25%. They're increasing the damage by 46%, so the rough DPS increase here is 20%. More damage. The negative effect of the perk is reduced from 7.5 to 4, and it stacks 15 times instead of 8. Comment, now the Spark is more often used as a single copy, as an auxiliary weapon that quickly inflicts the maximum negative effect on the enemy. With these changes, we want to make this weapon more independent. It will now take longer for the maximum negative effect to be applied, but the damage will be significantly higher during this time. This is a huge nerf. Huge nerf. So one of the things the Spark does right now really well is shoot down missiles. I know you didn't think I was going to say that, but believe it or not, in the air game mode, these things are really good at doing that, obviously, because they can wipe out an entire missile barrage in literally one click of a mouse button. But you need fire rate for that, so they're kind of nerfing the fire rate. In addition to that, they're nerfing the ability for it to apply stacks, similarly to the Flash. Honestly, nobody asked for the Spark to deal damage. So, whatever, 46% more of, I think it's like 4, isn't exactly that much. Obviously, you can't choose what part the spark damages either, so I'm not 100% sure why they're making this change. It's not going to change much, to be honest. People are going to still attempt to use it as an auxiliary weapon. Apollo 4 buff, durability increased from 363 to 427. The edits are related to the fact that the generator is destroyed much more often than the Thor. Can you believe that? Like, the Apollos are actually, even though the Apollo has more hit points than the Thor, it is more often destroyed. And that's simply because it's bigger. Hitbox matters. Like, it just does. The larger something is, the more easy it is to hit, period. Like, it doesn't matter how good you are. What comes down to is if you're shooting the side of a barn, you're going to hit it. Reaper, buff. They're adding a perk after 7 hits on the enemy. By the way, it's not just a buff. This is the restoration of the old Reaper. For those of us who are not aware, years and years ago, this is actually before even I joined, so before 2019, this is the original perk of the Reaper. It's being re-added back to the Reaper. After 7 hits on the enemy, it fires an armor-piercing projectile that penetrates up to 3 structure pins without losing damage, and each miss reduces the number of accumulated hits. However, and this is the largest part, this is the huge buff, they are not returning the mechanic of overheating while firing. So in other words, it is still ammunition dependent like it was before, and it also has its old perk. So the Reaper's gone through a lot of changes. Originally, it was a weapon that required both ammunition and overheated, and it also, because of it did both of those things, it had the perk of it penetrated. But back then, I don't think that was penetrate. I don't believe the penetration was limited to 3 pins. I think it was Scorpion penetration back then. It could go through your entire build, but it doesn't really matter. Long story short, it lost that ability because it overheated and it didn't require ammunition, overheated. Then they just changed its perk to it doesn't require ammunition. Long story short, now it's combining both perks. It should be pretty dang good. This actually might make it on par with the Miller, which is a better weapon than it right now. So the Reaper is getting a super huge buff. Might be a good time to get your hands on some Reapers. The Kronos, the fastest cabin in the game, they're buffing it again. Originally, when the cabin came out, if you took damage, the healing stopped. Actually, was cut by like 80% or some shit, 25%. Doesn't matter. Long story short, it meant that the healing was turned off. They removed that. Now they're also removing or adding in a buffer where if you activate the perk to heal parts and everything's healed, it will no longer drain the charge, making it a little bit better. Quality of life, but also a straight buff. The Munin, this is the drone cabin that where you activate it, your drones get a damage buff, but after the perk ends, it destroys the drones. They're saying now the cooldown time of drones that had the perk active at the time of destruction is reduced by 35%, meaning their drones now reload faster. This is a Methuselah of a buff for the fuse drones. If you do this right, that's a crazy fast reloads on fuse drones. But other than that, that's actually a decent buff. CC-18 Typhoon. Not 100% sure why they didn't put this up here with the Mammoth and Tsunami, but the CC-18 Typhoon reload time reduced from 7 to 6 seconds, same as Tsunami, and the negative effect of the perk is now 30% instead of 40%, and its duration is 2.5 seconds instead of 3 seconds. The reasons for changing the reload time are similar to Tsunami and Mammoth. A slight weakening of the negative effect of the cannon's perk related to the fact that it will now be applied more often. Whatever. To be honest, the Typhoon, the reason why I say whatever is because the Typhoon's perk originally was God tier. Now it's kind of irrelevant. Like, in reality, it's not like it's a flash. So right now, the effect of the perk of the Typhoon is that reload time and reload time and time to cooldown of weapons on a build are increased by, I think, 50% for that period of time. But it doesn't matter. Like, if the person's already shooting at you or not reloading at the time, the perk does nothing. It's a huge nerf. Originally, the Typhoon used to basically shut off an opponent's build, which is the reason why the quote on the Typhoon is that being hit by this is a death sentence. It was. Or back in the day, it was a death sentence. Someone would hit you with a Typhoon and your build would basically turn off. It'd be like getting hit with a max stack of, like, complete max stacks of the Spark. I'm sorry, yeah, of the Flash. So imagine Flash max stacks, except being applied over any distance. And that's what the Typhoon used to do. Now it's just dog shit, so it doesn't matter. The RL9 Helicon, now, instead of seconds of projectile flight being 0.75 seconds, the meters traveled by the projectile, which is 180 meters, are used to activate the perk. Change to make it easier for the perk to interact with projectile speed upgrade as well as the perk of the Step Spider cabin. This is a huge buff. Huge buff. Because of the way that the game was calculating when this perk activated, faster projectile speed meant the perk didn't activate at all. It was a huge nerf because the idea is if you were, let's assume you had 25% faster projectile speed, that means that your projectile would have to travel 25%, would travel 25% longer before activating the perk. It meant that you wouldn't get the damage bonus at all. So now they're making it just say, screw it, 180 meters. There you go. So anything over 180 meters, you get the damage bonus. Thumbs up. Flash, damage frequency reduced, damage increased, same things as the spark. So they're just making it so the Flash and the Spark are now damage dealers in their own right. Whatever. Ripper. Now the weapon does 3.5 times more damage to bumpers and passive melee weapons. They fixed a bug that caused the discs to disappear when they hit the water. Comment: the melee damage type is a feature of the Ripper that allows it to deal full damage to parts that let damage through. Because of this feature, it loses too much effectiveness when the discs hit bumpers and passive melee weapons that have high resistance. Oh my god. They need to just... Look, they already have this weapon in the game. It's called the blockchain. If they really wanted it to do these things, they would have just copied the perk of the blockchain. Why are they doing this? Like, why are they doing this? This is crazy. They're like, it does collision damage, but collision damage hits things that have resistance collision damage, and then they does less damage. That's not good. What? That's crazy. It's crazy that the weapon that does collision damage interacts with things that have damage resistance to collision, and it does less damage. Well, that's terrible. No, we want more damage against collision. Idiots. Continuing on. Like, I don't even know what to say about this. Like, come on, man. Just come on. All right. Long story short, buff to the Ripper. Optimization of bonuses for the part upgrade system. This is a massive amount of changes. Long story short, we all know that there are fusions in the game. Yeah, I'm still scrolling. It reads like the credits to Star Wars here. Long story short, the fusions have been changed. The improvement in tonnage of all movement parts is increased to plus 10%. Mass limit upgrades from all engines is increased to plus 10%. Recharge boosters, which are I'm trying to remember what those are. I think recharge boosters are just the I think it's just the power unit. I'm pretty sure it's just the power unit. Anyway, it increased to plus 10%. Cabins. Instead of damage from self-destruction, which is useless, added a bonus to built-in radar and radio. Plus 200 meters for the Hippogriff cabin. What? So, why? Hold on, let me reread that. Oh, got it. So, sorry, I actually had to read that chat. My brain farted. Long story short, every cabin has a built-in radar. This is true. People don't know this, but this is true. The built-in radar is if you have no radars on your build. Do you remember that really tiny circle on your build? The one that's incredibly tiny? Well, they're increasing it to 200 meters. If you have, instead of damage from self-destruction, straight up, you can have plus 200 meters of your basic radar. If you are using the Hippogriff cabin, this says plus 15% to all radar parameters. Pretty crazy, actually, because that doesn't say to only the Hippogriff. So if you're using the Hippogriff with an actual radar, for whatever reason, 15% to all radar parameters, which means the Hippogriff plus the Doppler plus that would be pretty fucking nuts. Considering you can get that through the Doppler, see people through walls, things. Instead of explosion radius from self-destruction, because that's also useless, added a new bonus. Plus 3 kilometers an hour to speed. Whoa! Holy shit. You know what's really funny? They're going to nerf every cabin in the game again. Either that or this is to help offset the nerf to every cabin in the game when they took 5 kilometers an hour off every cabin. And they're saying the reduction time in self-destruction... Time to self-destruction is now 30%. Upgrade the cabin tonnage is now plus 15%. In all weapons, unless otherwise noted, reload time is increased from 9 to 10%, because I just happen to remember the reload time is 9%. Rotation speed upgrade is increased to plus 30%. Ammunition upgrade is plus 50%. Hit impulse is increased to plus 50%. Oh my god. I wonder if that's going to be unique for the toadfish and the spike. Added spread stability upgrade. This includes the old spread increase and aim speed, and also affects the increase in spread from speed and turning. The logic for the time to overheat upgrade has been increased. It no longer affects the maximum time to cooling. That's good. So one of the things that's interesting is weapon cooling time, the time it takes for your weapon to cool off entirely. Usually, for example, if you're using nothing but radiators, doesn't increase the more radiators you add. However, apparently, the upgrade for time to overheat did increase the amount of time it took your weapon to cool off. Not a buff, that's a fix. That's a bug fix. Vector, Sinus, Spectre, Aspect, Punisher, Defender, Guardian, Prosecutor, Vindicator, Tackler. They replaced the spread increase with spread stability, aim speed with scatter. So they made them more accurate, basically. Piercer, Fidget, Imp. Replaced aim speed with spread and stability. Equalizer. Oh my god, there's just too many things to go over here. The Miller, damage upgrade now afflicts the blast damage as well. I thought it did before, but apparently it didn't. Replaced spread increase with projectile speed plus 15%. Good, this shouldn't have existed. Replaced recoil with barrel spool up time minus 35%. Excellent. Reaper, same. Wait. Replaced barrel spool up time, which is still exists, but that was moved to the handling category. But they added with penetration ability plus 20%. Okay. So whatever the current penetration of the Reaper is, this is the first perk of the entire game that affects weapon penetration, by the way. Bullet penetration, by the way. So 20% more of that. Replaced ammunition with projectile speed plus 15%. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, especially seeing as you kind of want more bullets, but fair enough. Replaced recoil with barrel spool up time from up here. Players who had an upgrade for barrel spool up time in the power. Long story short, they're doing the switch around for you if you have fused Reapers. The Rapier, Storm Whirlwind still win. They replaced spread with stability, recoil with projectile speed, rotation speed with rate of fire. Therm, Jewel, Cyclone, Starfall. By the way, I have things to say about the Starfall in a later video. You know what? I'll just say it right now. Did you guys know the Starfall does the exact same damage as a Therm? Did you guys know that it is literally a Therm, but 6 energy? It's a 6 energy Therm. It's ass. Anyway, replace recoil with projectile speed and rotation speed with rate of fire. By the way, recoil was useful for trying to use these guns on hovers, but now that's gone. The Tempest, the Whirl, replaced recoil with rate of fire. Sledgehammer, basically all the shotguns, and the Gravistar also replaced rotation speed with rate of fire. Oof. Ow. I don't know how to feel about that. That's a huge change. Like, they kind of just threw that in here with these fusions, but that's a massive fusion change. Like, think about it like this. Like, right now, okay, so to be fair, Gravistar with rotation speed is good, to be honest. Gravistar is good. I think having the... No, pretty much just the Gravistar. I don't even know why the Rupture would have rotation speed, but whatever. Rate of fire plus 15%, that's 15% more DPS. I don't know. I don't think they know what they're doing here. That means that this fusion is beyond overpowered. Like, so far, not much of this has really mattered, except for, you know, rate of fire increase on the Therm, rate of fire on the Rapier, 15% more DPS on autocannons. That's pretty big. 15% more on shotguns is not... Yeah, it's even the goblins. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Rate of fire increase for shotguns now. Getting fused shotguns is now infinitely better. I mean, hold on a second. Look, I'm sorry. I don't mean to like to stick on this point. But right now, the largest buff you can get for shotguns or Gravistars, anything like that, is 5%. You can get a 5% damage increase. This is 3 times as powerful as that. And also stacks with the 5% damage increase, because they didn't say they removed that. Just letting you know. That's not smart. I don't think they know what they're doing. But anyway, Judge, Prosecutor, Executioner, the cannons. Replace blast radius increase with penetration ability. Huge nerf. Huge nerf. Fucking what are they doing? Replaced recoil with spread. Just what are you doing? This is a huge nerf to the Judge, Prosecutor, Executioner, Tsunami, and Typhoon, and Avalanche. You don't need more penetration with these fucking guns. You want the explosion to hit their explodey bits. Like, who uses the Executioner 88mm and hopes they don't hit a generator? Like, you don't need penetration for this. Whatever. Anyway, especially considering the Prosecutor and Executioner have pen to ignore, whatever. Little Boy Hulk, the other cannons, they replaced spread with spread stability. The Nagul. Why is my brain failing to know what the hell the Nagul is. Anyway, damage upgrade affects blast, replaced blast radius, rotation. All right. I don't often do this, chat. Give me a second. I don't know what the Nagul is. Oh, it's the stupid new autocannon. The stupid new autocannon with 3 rounds. It's the revolver autocannon. I'm sorry. The damage upgrade now also benefits blast as well. Replace blast radius increase with penetration, which is what? The fuck? Doesn't the Nagul only do blast? This doesn't do anything. Doesn't the Nagul only do blast damage? Hold on. God damn me. Now I actually no. I'm just going to continue on. Replace rotation speed with range and spread increase with stability. The median, by the way, big ups to everyone who managed to sell their medians before this event that's currently going on that makes the median worthless. Replaced impulse from hit with penetration. That's actually good. The median is not a crossbow. It doesn't have a lot of impulse on it, so more penetration on its shot is good. Replaced recoil with spread stability, fine. Yang Wang replaced rotation speed with rate of fire. Huge nerf to the Yang Wang. I know what you're thinking. That's 25% more rate of fire. If I recall correctly, the rate of fire is the speed between shots in the burst, not reload time. But rotation speed's huge. Being able to spin your Yang Wang around and get those shots is actually more important than the grenades coming out rapidly. Retro Thresher, etc. Rate of fire increase. Huh. Are they just... Oh my god. Alright, I'll have to talk about this afterwards. Wasp, Period Locust Cricket replaced ammunition with rate of fire plus 25%. Snowfall replaced blast radius increase with charge time minus 20%. Good. So fire faster. Waltz replaced blast radius with charge time, replaced rotation speed with rate of fire, replaced ammunition with a rocket rotation radius. I believe what that means is because Waltz is unique and it spins around all retarded like. Yeah, this tightens that little retarded spin. Helicon replaced rotation speed, ammunition, stability, and projectile speed upgraded to 25%. Oh my god. Used Helicons. Jesus. They really like this gun. So remember, whenever Gaijin goes to the trouble of buffing one gun, they're doing it to get you to get your hands on them so they can nerf it in the ground and make you feel stupid. RA1 Heather replaced rotation speed with projectile flight speed plus 25%. Whoa! Oh my god, what is wrong with this? What is happening? Like, these... Okay. Again, this is something I'm going to have to talk about at the end of this. The Nest replaced blast radius increase with charge time, ammunition related fire, max projectile lifetime with time until projectile self-destruct minus 15%, so Nest can explode faster or whatever. The Spike gets impulse from hit increased to 30%. Huge buff. Impulse from hit 30%, replaced ammunition with fire rate. The Varan replaced impulse from hit with reloading time. So the Varan is no longer an impulse weapon, but then again, when was the last time you saw Varan? The Incinerator, now the upgrade increases, so if you get the damage upgrade on your Incinerator, it also increases the damage from the projectile explosion. Replace spread with fire puddle, lifetime plus 2 seconds. Oh, that'd be nice to get. Mandrake, damage upgrade now inflicts the damage of the fire puddles, reduces spread, increase with spread stability, replaced rotation speed with flight speed, and replaced recoil with fire puddle radius. The Emily replaced spread increases with stability. What? Replaced aim speed with projectile speed. Emily already has an insane projectile speed, so that's really good. The Corvo replaced aim speed with rotation by 30%. Summoner and Argument replaced range of fire with projectile speed. The Astraeus, which, by the way, this is combined with the previous Astraeus buffs and nerfs. Well, nerfs. Replaced impulse from hit with penetration plus 20%. Replaced spread with spread stability. That 20% is actually good. Replaced reloading with penetration plus 20%, so now the kaiju doesn't reload as quickly. That sucks for those of us who like kaiju builds. Scorpion replaced impulse from hit with projectile damage loss rate minus 10%. Wow. Few Scorpions are going to get knuckin' futs. Replaced ammunition with spread stability. This could be huge. Considering the way that the Scorpion deals damage, that's probably pretty big. Thyrus added penetration ability 20% into the power category, replaced rotation speed with rate of fire. The porcupine damage now affects fire puddles, because, porcupines weren't doing enough damage, chat. Ripper, which is combined with the changes to the Ripper above. The spread is replaced with lifetime of disc plus 3 seconds. In case you ever thought you wanted to play Leviathan Clan Wars again, the answer is no, you don't. Replaced ammunition with rotation speed and projectile speed was increased to 25%. The Aurora, which was they literally just released perfectly fused Auroras. So watch this. Replaced barrel spool up time, which is moved to handling, with damage plus 5%. So everyone who has barrel spool up time plus whatever it is now, 35%, so that's going to replace with 35%. Replaced rotation speed with barrel spool up time. So if you didn't have rotation speed before, you no longer have barrel spool up time. But players who had an upgrade from barrel spool up time in the power category will receive a replacement. The increase in damage in the power category and barrel spool up time in the handling category. I don't even know. Blockchain replaced aim speed with spread stability. The Athena, which is combined with all the previous changes, which were all nerfs. Damage upgrade now also affects blast damage, so that is a buff. Replaced spread increase with spread stability, that is a buff. Replaced aim speed with part heating rate plus 30%, which would return this part heating rate to close to its previous stats before the buff. Remember, if you reduce 30 and then add 30, it's not even. You reduce 30 and then you add 30 to the reduced number. So assume the previous number was 100%, they reduced it by 30%. 30% of 70% is, what? 7 times 3, 21%. So it's actually 7, 8, 9, 91%. So basically, with this, you're at 91% efficiency of the current Athena. There, I did the math for you on the fly. Assembler, but without this, you're just 30% weaker. Assembler added the penetration plus 20%, added replaced range of fire with spread minus 17%. Skinner, cable wind-up speed increased to 50%, meaning the time that it does its yank and its pull. 50% faster. And the Fortune replaced ammunition with a rate of fire plus 25%. Jesus Christ, did this entire thing. So, remember I said that I would get back to this at the end of this thing? This is what I'm going to get back to. What the fuck are these guys doing? This is making fused weapons not just better than their previous unfused counterparts, because that's always been the case, right? Your guns, when they're fused, are slightly better. This is a massive change. This is not minor. This is huge. This is a massive change. Some of these aren't even balanced. Like, if you look at the Retcher, which of course is hilarious, because for those of us who have fused Retchers that thought they were perfectly fused, no, that's no longer the case. Your Retchers are fused wrong. Basically, everybody who has any fusions are now fused wrong. Sledgehammer, Mace, Gravistar, Thunderbolt, 15% more DPS. Goblin, 15% more DPS. Like, these are huge. And yes, they improved reload speed of reloading weapons by 1% over what they were before. Like, some of these things aren't balanced. I think even the Retcher can get a 15% damage DPS increase. Scorpion's getting projectile loss 10%. And this isn't to every Scorpion. These are just to fused weapons. So, fused weapons are getting a massive jump. If this goes through, this is ridiculous. I don't think this is the right... I honestly think this is terrible. Like, for example, a fused Heather is now the scariest thing on the planet. Like, projectile flight speed plus 25%. Like, right now, people use J for 5% increase to projectile speed. This is going to be 25% increase. You can use it with J for a 30 even percent speed to projectile speed. Your Heathers will be landing all the time, right on people. That's ridiculous. That's crazy different between an unfused Heather and a fused Heather. Like, that's not even close. Like, the only weapon right now that currently has that going for it, like, that's not true, there's two. But the primary one I can think of is the Tempura. Right now, the Tempura is, you land, basically, the fusion can increase the damage on the Tempura from 600 to 900, because it lasts 25% longer, which means that it gets 3 ticks instead of 2. Huge difference between fused and unfused, but thankfully the weapon is ass, so nobody uses it, nobody knows. And even if they did use it, it's not that big of a difference because of the fact that the weapon is ass. But some of these things are used extensively, and some of these things with their buffs are going to be remarkably strong. Like, 15% more DPS on the Retcher and the Impulse and the Thresher. Just 15% faster. And right now, the Thresher already fires like a machine gun, so that's going to be ridiculous. Like, 25% rate of fire on Crickets. What? Oh, god damn it. I didn't read that. So rate of fire is the time between shots, right? Well, Pyramid, Wasp, Locust, okay, fine. They only fire 2 rockets, so it's going to go da-da. The Cricket already had its rate of fire increased. And we already have Adatlan, the co-driver, to increase the rate of fire. They're making it so if you have, well, obviously people with fused crickets right now, they're no longer God fused because you want the ammunition one to replace that with a rate of fire. Oh my god. If they're doing this specifically to make people refuse, it makes me want to punch fucking kittens. But that's what it feels like because 25% faster crickets. This is literally complete reversion of the nerf to the cricket. It will become a relic again, relic power with this fusion. Of course, they'll nerf it afterwards, but whatever. Like, what are they doing? This is too big. Like, these changes are way too big. The difference between a fused weapon and an unfused weapon is going to be a little bit too dramatic, don't you think? Rate of fire on basically every autocannon. So, by the way, for those of us who don't know, the Cyclone is like balling out of control right now. It is insanely good. It's really, really, really good. Like, for those of us who don't know, Cyclone's tits. It's really good. But 15% even more on top of that? Come on. What are we doing here? The Cyclone's going to be even crazier stronger. Rate of fire on all the other autocannons. I don't even know why they didn't bother to put all these under the same damned category. They're all the exact same numbers. Rate of fire, rate of fire. We've got speed, projectile speed, so I don't know why they bothered to do that. This is ridiculous. So a while back in Crossout, the time to kill was getting so low that they buffed every single part across the board. You guys know this. Or if you don't know this, you know that now. And they did this because people were dying too quickly. These fusions are going to make things die far too fast. Again, which will mandate another durability increase. Because people are going to start dying too quickly. This is ridiculous. I don't know what to say about most of this. I mean, other than the fact that I don't like it. Everyone right now is hurriedly logging into Crossout, checking their fusions to see if any of this helps you. No, the answer is no. For those of us who are wondering why I'm saying no, it doesn't help any of you, because right now, everybody who has fused weapons, we've reached a nexus point in Crossout, where almost everyone has a perfectly fused weapon, right? Due to all the several events that have come out, and people are like, oh, they're offering perfectly fused retchers, they're offering perfectly fused whatever. And so you fuse them during those events. So they know what the majority of fused weapons are now because they're the ones who gave us the weapons in those events. And now they're fucking those weapons over. Because let's assume you have a fused retcher like I do. Well, mine's fused for not fire rate. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember the 3 fusions. It's not damage, time to overheat, projectile speed, and whatever the hell else. Long story short, it's not rotation speed, I'm sure. Because they certainly aren't giving that away. They never gave away rotation speed. Now, oh, tough luck, you didn't have rotation speed, so you don't get that 15% DPS. Time for you to refuse your retchers. Time to refuse them again. Just pay. Fucking god damn it. I don't like this. This is terrible. Like, everyone who has all these fused weapons, which they spent time and effort to get fused perfectly, now they're no longer the perfect fusion simply because they changed the fusions around so that the ones that you didn't have are actually the good ones. How freaking cancerous is that? This is a huge patch. I'm sorry for wasting everyone's time for so long. It's been 48 minutes as of the time I say this, but holy crap, huge patch. Nerf to legs, because, everyone hates legs. Oh, and by the way, they entirely fucking forgot. I said I'd come back to this, and I did. These guys, they don't remember what they're doing. There was a form of movement that was nerfed out of the game because it was stronger than any other form of movement in the game, and it was Omni hovers, where you take Omni wheels and you take hovers, you put them together, and you'd have no weaknesses. You'd be the best build in the game. And they disabled that. They're like, whoops, we're not going to deal with that. We're going to turn hovers off when you use any other movement part other than, let's say, legs. So hover legs works, but hover anything else, we turn that off. Important, due to the introduction of this stupid mechanic that is just here to nerf legs, the forced disabling of hovers when mounting on other movement parts has been removed. Oopsie. So what we could just expect this. If this shit comes to Crossout, everyone's going to be on Omni hovers again, and then they're going to nerf it 2 weeks later because the fact they're like, whoops, we're bad at our jobs. We forgot. We forgot. Like, this is oh my god, this patch. I gotta say, it's becoming harder and harder to defend Crossout because some of this stuff is getting harder and harder to defend. Like, I enjoy minor buffs and balance changes, but this optimization bonuses of part upgrade system is just ridiculous. Those that are insufficiently effective were amplified. That's horseshit. That is horseshit. That is not true. They're doing this intentionally. The reason why they're making this change is not to make things that were less useful more useful. That's not what's happening. They're doing this so everyone has to refuse their shit. That's it. Period. Full stop. But anyway, what do you guys think? Comments below. Let me know. I don't think most of this is going to come to the game, but some of it definitely is. I don't know about this movement part. I mean, they never even managed to pull in that one thing that they were trying to do with the wheels, where they were trying to add in like torque. That never made it in. So hopefully this doesn't make it in. But oof, just huge nerfs all around to everyone. Huge nerfs all around to everyone. I hope everyone made enough freaking Griddia legs. Because if you didn't, you won't be able to run your Griddy any longer. Hope you guys don't like weren't using legs and wheels like everybody in the entire game. Another nerf to the caucus. Just remove it. Jesus Christ. Barely any nerf to the Hurricane or the Pyre. Athena change. I don't know if it's that big of a nerf. Probably it's going to be enough to hurt the price of it, so everyone now trick those idiots who are now diving out of the Athena and just buy it. Pick it up while it's cheap. Because, money, a fool and their money are soon parted. What do you guys think of the changes? Comments in the comments below. Let me know. I'll respond to them. You know I do. Thank you guys for watching as long as you did. I'm losing my voice. I'm going to leave before this reaches 1 hour video. Peace. Sorry it's such a huge one. Peace.